like always,
You are respectful, I'm just saying. Może powiedz sobie,
Okay.
you know what I'm saying, right? Hi guys. Hi everybody. How are you doing? Hi. Hi ADHD and HD. Oh, I feel you so much with that. Hi Lauren. Hi Ryan. Hi Barb. Hi Subi. Hi Spunik. Hi Tammy. Yes, to everyone who's saying they've been hearing good news on Ukraine, there is a ton of good news on Ukrainian front today. I do want to. I'll wait for. Hi, Blue Marine. I will wait for a couple more people to join, and then I'll go over certain things that that I talked about yesterday. Hi, Brandy. Heroyam Slava. Hi, Juju. Hi, everyone. Good to see you. Hello, YouTube. You guys are being awfully quiet, but I see you're there. Hi, Theo. Thank you for taking one for the team. But yeah, basically, there's been a lot of updates on the front. And there's been a lot of confirmations. Hi, Jillian. There's been a lot of confirmations. There's been a lot of speculation. I'm going to go over all of that. Hi, Veronica. There is a lot going on. Also, I do want to start this news stream with paying tribute to 9/11, because even though obviously this channel is about Ukraine, it is also, I also live in the US. Heroyam Slava Grumpy and hi Gap. I also live in the US. Hi Sandra. And to me, it is very important to speak at least a couple of words about what had happened on September 11th, 2001, especially since I live in New York. Heroyam Slava, and hi Karine. So one of the things that I do want to say is that as someone who was a child in Ukraine when 9/11 happened, I didn't necessarily, hi Lorraine, I didn't necessarily understand what was going on, because to me at that point in time, 2001, I was about, 7 years old. And at that point in time, for me, I didn't even know that Manhattan is a part of New York City. I thought those were very different. I thought it was a separate city because I had seen it in the movies. I knew that hi Lenny, Heroyam Slava, I knew that my godmother lives in New York City. I thought that my godmother lives in New York City. And I knew that my godmother lives in New York City, and that was basically the only point of contention that I had. I have a godmother. She's been living here for over 30 years, and she lives in Staten Island. I had no idea what Staten Island was. I remember coming home from school. Ukraine is 7 hours ahead, and I remember my dad standing in the kitchen just like this, being like, oh my God. And I remember my mom basically calling my godmother and asking her if everything is okay, if they're fine, because again, I don't think that my parents had been to the US at that point. My grandparents definitely have. And so the geography of everything, especially with how big New York is, was very, 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 very like foreign to us. We had no idea, right? And so I just remember asking my dad what happened, and my dad had said there has been a terrorist attack on the United States. And we just like stood there silently, sort of just watching the news update, and it was like a very, very, very big deal in Ukraine as well. The next day in school, we were going over it too, because it was an incredibly big deal. We were going into the history, and we were being explained what had happened and like how it had happened. I believe I was in the second grade. In the first or second grade, and it was something very, very big. And so my whole life, I've kind of lived with it, knowing what September 11th was, and how it had impacted the US, but not necessarily, like I never had really like the feeling that attached me to it until I moved to New York City and until I went to downtown Manhattan and until I saw at that point the construction of the 9/11 memorial. And until I got there and until I started, reading the names on the plates and sort of like deep diving into the history of it, that's when I got a feeling. That's when I got a feeling of attachment to it. It happened in the city that I consider to be my second city. I consider Lviv to be my home, and I consider New York to be my home. And although it had touched the entirety of America and changed the world forever, I think that it feels the most in New York. And so every 9/11, I kind of dive deep down the rabbit hole of reading things about 9/11. And I think at this point, I have read so many stories and have listened so many black box recordings and have watched so many documentaries and have watched so much footage and have listened to so many phone call recordings and have read so many different what would have happened if stories that that I feel incredibly grateful that I feel incredibly grateful that I want to formulate that in the right way, right? I feel incredibly grateful that those who have given their lives to protect and serve the United States after 9/11 happened had made this country much more secure, so that every time that I go into downtown Manhattan, I don't think of whether there is going to be a plane hitting a building that I'm standing in front of. And I can just think about giving tribute to the people to which it unfortunately happened. And I want to say that, living in New York City and having read all of these stories and having read all of the 9/11 survivor stories and 9/11 stories from people who didn't make it to work that day and stuff like that. Every time you go to downtown Manhattan, every time you look at a building, every time you take the A train, every time you look at a store or look at a cross street, you know that there was a story here of somebody that survived. And there is a story here of somebody that did not. And it just, it's a very special feeling every year, especially around, the beginning of September. And yeah, I just, wanted to pay a tribute to all of the heroes, to all of the first responders, to all of the firefighters, policemen, to all of the nurses, to all of the doctors who had to deal with either the consequences of 9/11 or directly with the catastrophe as it was progressing. And I want to thank every single one of them and every single one of their relatives and every single one of their friends for all of their contributions to the impact of the tragedy and to all of their contributions to make the country safer, to all of their advocacy and to everything that they have done since it had happened. And obviously to every single person who has made it possible for me to come to New York City and not feel threatened and not feel scared for all of this time that something like this could happen again. So yeah, that is something that I wanted to say. And of course, no one will ever forget and no one will ever forgive the atrocities that had happened on September 11th, 2001. And today I really want to go and go to 9/11 Memorial. I do usually do this in the evening because there is less people, like later at night, because during the day it's impossible to even get to the memorial. It's really difficult. There are so many people, so I would like to go at some point later in the day. So yes, well, thank you for listening to me, and I just wanted to make sure that I I just wanted to make sure that I brought this up because even though this channel is about Ukraine, this is not something that I want to gloss over or pretend like it didn't happen. And it's an incredibly big event, especially for someone who had been calling New York their home for 11 years, you know? Especially coincidentally, I think this year is 11 years that I've been calling New York home. And it is what it is. So that's what I wanted to say. Hi, Beatrice, and hi, Brew. Whew. Okay, so while this is an incredibly sad beginning, an incredibly serious beginning to the newscast today, the newscast today is mostly filled with positive news. I did want to go over something that we talked about yesterday. Yesterday, we talked about Donetsk airport and how Donetsk airport might have been recaptured. And I did say that I had sources that had given me a confirmation to it, but I did not want to name the sources. Neither did I want to say that it was 100% recaptured because, again, it hasn't been confirmed from official sources yet. So there is a narrative going around online, and I'll break it down to you as to why I and so many independent journalists thought that this is a possibility, and I still think that it might be a possibility right now as well. So I will break it down for you. Yesterday, a bunch of very, very, very credible Frontline journalists have tweeted that the Donetsk airport has been recaptured by Ukrainian forces. Hi, Zuri. Thank you so much. Those tweets were up for 6 to 7 hours, and then they all vanished. They got deleted. No retractions, no corrections, got deleted, completely deleted. And those are journalists who have been incredibly credible so far, who have been delivering only the correct information so far. And that's why I was very much inclined to believe them. I took that information and I had texted somebody that I know who deals with people on the front lines, and I had asked them if that was true. And they said, looks like yes, but no official confirmation yet. So to me, that also signaled like it most likely is true. Then I went on Twitter again and I discovered that most of these tweets have been deleted. So I was like, okay, there are two possibilities here. One, it was a huge flop around all independent media and all of us mistook something. Two, OPSEC asked these things to not be popularized. Привет, все добро. So I went into deeper research, and then I discovered that Institute for the Study of War had published their new map. And on that map, how do I have Slava? Hi, Netlin. And then I went on to Institute for the Study of War, and I had...
Second, please.
It's very loud. I had gone onto the...
You want some?
I don't. I had gone on the Institute for the Study of War, and I had discovered that they had published a report that said reportedly Ukraine had attacked Donetsk. Now, the thing about that is Ukraine was near Bakhmut or Bakhmut, depends on how you pronounce it, a little while before that, and there has been a fight going on there. Hi, Joe, and hi, John DS, devlogs. And there had been fights going on there. Then Malcontent published a report saying that these territories have been recaptured by Ukraine, and on the bottom said, oh, Russia can't even hold on to Pisky. Pisky is a village directly bordering Donetsk airport. Pisky is a village directly bordering Donetsk airport. And the front line is built so that Ukrainian forces cannot get into Donetsk without going through the airport first. So all of these factors point to two possible scenarios. One, another thing is on the 10th, which is when these reports started airing yesterday, Severodonetsk has been captured by the Ukrainian forces, and there is an airport there. Thank you, Amanda. But that airport is not something incredibly important for people to name it as like, wow, Ukrainian forces captured that airport. So my other thought was that it was a huge, huge, huge media flop where they had confused Severodonetsk with Donetsk. But here's the thing, for Ukrainians, I feel like we could confuse that, right? But for foreign speakers, Severodonetsk and Donetsk do not really sound the same because people even pronounce it very differently. So I wouldn't think that somebody just sort of like just completely dropped the first word and the other person read it and was like, oh, Donetsk then. And then Institute for the Study of War is an accredited publication. Institute for the Study of War is an accredited publication. Malcontent only publishes very, very, very verified information and gives his synopsis based on facts, right? So there is a lot of that going on. And also, I would think that if journalists made a complete, incredible, very, very huge mistake like that, instead of just vanishing their tweets from like online and completely just pretending like they never existed, they would issue a retraction or a correction. Glory to the heroes. And so I would assume that had it been a mistake, all of these journalists would have issued a retraction or correction, and none of them did. It just vanished. So to me, it looks like OPSEC, and provided how many Ukrainian troops have been actually noticed by the border of Donetsk, it is, if you look at the map and if you analyze, it's not completely impossible. It's not completely impossible at all, but instead of speculating any further, I would say let's wait and let's see for the next couple of days, because it is 100% not going to be confirmed today. It is too fresh. It is too new. But that's a very, very, very interesting bit of information. And the reason why I was so incredibly forward about it yesterday was because, again, it seems like the entirety of the it looks like the entirety of the independent journalism world that were in the front lines have at first confirmed it until they retracted it. So that cannot be just, a glitch in the matrix between many journalists who have to this day been reporting correct information. Sini, I'm so very sorry. Sini, stop. Please stop. Stop eating yourself. Thank you very much. Okay, so without further ado, how are you guys? Let's talk about you for a second, and then let's deep dive into the news about Ukraine as per usual. I will talk about everything that Kyiv Independent has released today at the end of the stream as per usual, as quick facts. Hi, Maxim. Thank you. I will also talk about Eastern Ukraine has been without power. Yeah. I will talk about everything that has been coming out today in my news sources, and then I will also talk about counteroffensive, the territorial gains that have been confirmed so far, and the territorial gains that have been confirmed by pictures and confirmed by confirmed by the armed forces of Ukraine, but not necessarily by the official statement of the operational command. And I will then also do a little sneak peek on Twitter to see if anything had happened there while we are doing the news. So how are you guys? Thank you, Tony. Hi, Matthew. Hi, Ken. Good to see you guys. Good to see you. Дякую, Maxim. Good to hear that you're great, Amanda. Awesome. So good to hear. California wildfires have brought the smoke to my county. Oh no. Hi, Mariana. Oh, awesome. Good to hear that you're good, Netlin. Hi, Kay. Good to see you. All peachy. Peachy. I've gotten 2 peachies. Coming to the end of a PhD, exhausted and stressed. Oh no, but coming to the end of the PhD. Keyword being the end of the PhD, so you are going to be not exhausted and not stressed in no time. Hi, North Carolina. Good, relaxed for a good bit of the day. Needed a day of just lounging around. I feel you. I feel you on that one. I certainly feel very similar. I'm good. Yes, I'm very happy. Well, there is like good and bad news, sort of like mostly good news, some bad news, because obviously you guys have all heard about Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, which basically caused a huge power outage in eastern Ukraine. We will talk about it later. It was an informed decision. It was a controlled shutdown, so there is nothing to worry about there in terms of something happening to the nuclear power plant. However, there is a lot to worry about in terms of citizens of these residents of these neighborhoods that quite literally will be cut off from power and are cut off from power. So that is one of the downsides of what has been happening. Дуже пізно вже дуже пізно. Яка 12 ночі. Пора лягати спати. Hi from Ireland. It's great to hear what you have to say because some of the news networks you can't. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That's very, very kind of you. Let me turn on the light and I will jump straight into the news. I just realized that it's incredibly dark here because the weather in New York has been very, very, very gloomy today, and it's been incredibly gloomy today. The weather has been just, utter trash without any filter. The weather in New York City today is trash. Well, I mean, I understand that it kind of, it makes sense because today is just kind of a very gloomy day to begin with, but it's really gross outside. I will say it is very, very gross outside. I do prefer the climate, though, because it's not hot. Hi, Naniria. Oh my gosh, your dog is having surgery next Thursday. Oh, that's always so stressful for both you and the dog. It piss me off you picked the wrong person. Oh my gosh. Guys, I'm just gonna say, so that troll, there is a troll here that's made like over 140 accounts at this point. And the more you engage with him, the more you talk to him, the more you interact with him, hi Praxis, the more he's going to want to create accounts. So if you want that troll to be gone forever, I would just say ignore it and it goes away, because I personally am not going to respond to them anymore. I'm not going to speak to them. I'm not going to address them by any means. Heroyam Slava, Praxis. And I would say, please do the same. Just let the moderators yeet them out. If the moderators are not yeeting them out, then just let the moderators know, but otherwise don't engage with him. Don't be like, oh my God, he's back or anything like that, because that just fuels the fire. He sees that he's making a commotion and he comes back. Once we quite literally start ignoring him, he's not gonna care. Melly, you're not late. Melly, you're not late for the news. And yes, Kay, about 140 accounts. That particular troll is crazy. So yeah, hi Lithuania, good to see you guys. Suffocate the troll, just ignore it and it goes away. Honestly, in this particular case, ignore it and it goes away. In most cases, please go to the doctor. Don't ignore it, it doesn't go away. It could be something serious, but if it's a troll, rule of thumb, ignore it and it goes away. But anyways, okay, so I guess let's start on the news. We're starting strong today with Air Moldova has been banned by aviation regulator from resuming flights to Moscow. Newsmaker, the authority has also noted that flights to Russia can be dangerous and issued a directive prohibiting Moldovan airlines from operating flights on the territory of Russia. So let me remind you, yesterday Air Moldova decided to renew their flights to Russia in order to let their citizens, Moldovan citizens, who are in Russia come back to Moldova, or at least that was their explanation behind deciding to resume travel to Moldova. However, today they have been issued a ban by aviation regulator, and they have been prohibited from resuming flights back to Moscow. Ukrainian soldiers cheer themselves up with music. So these are soldiers on the front lines, and this is what has been happening in the barracks. Their moods are lifted, you know, they seem to be in good spirits. And also CyberDoc, no, it's not one-way flights. They can't fly to there to begin with. So Moldovan citizens will have to go through other countries and grab a flight from there. Now also, I don't know if you guys have seen my Twitter, but yesterday I posted something very interesting, and that was basically this Ukrainian soldier who had quite literally built, hi Kentucky, hi Adgar, so who had built a firewood oven in a trench. And I reposted that on Twitter. I thought it was very sweet. He had said that his dream right now is to open a small-scale eatery, I quote, for the soldiers so their meals wouldn't have to be as mundane and as boring as the meals normally are on the front lines. And so they had built with their battalion a firewood oven in quite literally like a trench. And so the joke here is that, you know, Russian soldiers can't even get their food, like dry food ratio, and Ukrainian soldiers are building firewood ovens. And then after I posted that, so many jokes had like kind of snowballed onto it. Someone had responded to me saying like, oh, hey, Marsha, how far away are Russian soldiers? Far enough that we can build a firewood oven. To which I responded with my brilliant sense of humor, as per me and my own judgment. I had said that, you know, their traces are so cold that we had to build a firewood oven to revive them. But hi, Lithuania. It should be named Trench TBH, yeah. But so Ukrainian soldiers are skilled enough to build a firewood oven in the trench, and Russian soldiers can't even hold their positions without running away and being shot in the ass, which I will be talking about that in a little bit as well. That's a very fun piece of information that had been confirmed that came out about a colonel. So our military in the zero positions of the Donbas. And these are some of the photos. Also, I noticed that a lot of people still confuse Donetsk with Donbas. So Donbas is a whole region, and I wanted to bring this up because I've actually had so many people ask me this question throughout the existence of this channel, and I kind of want to elaborate on it a little bit. So let me explain Ukrainian regions to you in a way in which most Americans would understand, and most English people would understand, right? So let's say basically in America, we have New England. New England is comprised of some states like Massachusetts, like New Hampshire, like Maine, right? So, and then we have cities, right? Like big cities that people know about, like Portland, Maine, or Boston, Massachusetts, or New York, New York, right? So in Ukraine, the equivalent of that would be Donetsk is a city like New York, in the state of Donetsk, like the state of New York, in Donbas region, like the region of New England. With, let's say, the UK, I would say there is a city called Dover. It's in Kentshire, right? Kentshire as in like the greater region. So it would be like Dover, Thanet County, Kentshire, right? So same would be here. It'll be the region will be, or rather, you know what? No, I would say that with the UK, if I'm giving the example of England, it would be Dover, Kentshire, and northern England region, or southern England region. Southern England region. So I would say it's kind of like that. So I wouldn't necessarily, I think that it's incredibly important to understand the difference between Donetsk and Donbas, because Mariupol is part of Donbas, Luhansk is part of Donbas, these big cities, Melitopol is part of Donbas. There is a lot going on there, and I think that a lot of people kind of use Donetsk and Donbas interchangeably, and they're not interchangeable. Donetsk is in Donbas, but Donetsk is Donbas, but Donbas is not Donetsk. You know what I'm saying? As in, like, Donetsk is part of Donbas, Donetsk is in Donbas, Donbas and Donetsk are not interchangeable. The BARS group of intelligence company of the 25th Airborne Brigade has captured a lieutenant colonel of the 18th Motor Rifle Division of the Russian Federation, Artem Kalamandik. The paratroopers saved the life of a Russian officer as he was abandoned by his own comrades and was unable to put a tourniquet on his wound on his own. Also, this is a colonel, and if you remember, there was like a photo of a Russian soldier. First of all, this is his ID. It says colonel right here. So he's a lieutenant colonel. And this is the photo. And just by the way, I don't know if you remember, but there was a Russian soldier that was shot in the ass as he was running away. There hasn't been any confirmation to that, but it looks like that's the same guy who was shot in the ass. So it looks like we shot a lieutenant colonel in the ass as he was running away from Ukrainian forces. The Russian Federation at night fired a missile at Dnipro and fired Nikopol with Grad multiple rocket launchers, wounding 4 people. The Russians also opened heavy fire on the city of Mykolaiv. 9 people were wounded to varying degrees and residential buildings were damaged. Take a look. Hi, Danon. Hi, Danon. Good to see you. Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is completely shut down. Today, September 11th, 2022, at 03:41 a.m., the last power unit of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant was disconnected from the power grid. Preparations are underway for its cooling and putting it into a cold state. For the last 3 days, the 6th power unit has been operating in an island mode, feeding only its own needs of Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant at a critically low capacity. As all communication lines have been between Zaporizhzhia and Ukrainian power system were damaged due to Russian shelling. Last night, after the resumption of operability of one of these communication lines to its operational capacity, it became possible to power ZNPP's own needs from the power system of Ukraine. Consequently, it was decided to shut down power unit number 6 and put it in the safest state, a cold state. So good news that it's a controlled shutdown, so there is nothing to worry about on the international level concerning Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant today. However, something to worry about is that millions of Ukrainians are now disconnected from power grid, and Kherson and Zaporizhzhia regions in particular do not have any power and do not have any electricity whatsoever. So that is going to be incredibly problematic, and there is a complete blackout in those areas, and there might be, like, they might have, sort of reserve engines or something like that to power electricity, but if they don't, then it is incredibly problematic. So here is a photo of Ukrainian forces entering Kupiansk. The liberation of settlements in Kupiansk and Izum districts of the Kharkiv region continues, according to General Staff. And here is what that looks like. This is a Ukrainian flag in front of the Kupiansk Regional Administration or Kupiansk City Administration. And this is what it looks like. Oh, Veronica, your profile picture is now a ye. I love that so much. So yes, also CyberDoc is saying it is a big problem. Yes, it is an incredibly big problem for the population of Ukraine because a lot of people are going to be left without electricity. A lot of people are going to be left without being able to fulfill their basic needs. And that is going to be a huge problem. However, that is still a better outcome than it would have been had the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant been shut down due to Russian shelling or due to some other issues. So this is, at least on a global level, much better because it is controlled and there is nothing to worry about as of the moment in terms of Russians shelling it and in terms of Russians doing something wrong to it. Я знаю, що не тільки Запоріжжя, я сказала, що Херсон також. Ми ще до цього не дійшли, дуже дякую. Я розумію, але я новини не так веду, добре? Тобто я розумію, що це не тільки Запоріжжя, це ще Харківська ТЕЦ, але ми до цього ще не дійшли. Ми ведемо новини по тому, як вони виходять. Тобто, якщо вони вийшли раніше, то я буду читати спочатку новини, які вийшли раніше, і потім ми будемо говорити те, що вийшло після цього. Тобто вони є в хронологічному порядку. So yes. So that is going to be incredibly problematic for Ukrainian people, and it is going to be incredibly problematic for that. But in the grand scheme of events, it's not necessarily the worst thing that could have happened. The worst thing that could have happened would be Russians shelling it and something happening to the reactor. And if reactor is going to be cooled off and reactor is going to be in the cool state, then it's going to be much less detrimental and much less dangerous for the state of the world. Zelensky says frontline movement of our soldiers continues in different directions. At present, as part of active operations since the start of September, Ukraine's armed forces have liberated about 2,000 kilometers of our territory. That is a little bit outdated of a statement. It was at 2:58 a.m., but this is also official statements. So official statements are going to be varying from the actual statements because official reports are they're not trying to announce things. They're not trying to announce certain territories that have been recaptured for OPSEC, right? They're leaving the Russians guessing, although it's hard to leave them guessing with all of the pictures that are flying around Twitter and the web in general. But the official numbers are going to differ from the numbers that have been increased throughout the offensive, as the offensive is going faster than the official reports confirm it. Which I was actually going to say, it's so funny because, you know, the Institute for the Study of War, when we were talking about certain areas like Izum and Kharkiv region, posted a map and said, well, the armed forces of Ukraine should be able to recapture it in the next 78 hours. And then reports came through like 5 minutes later after that statement was posted that they had already captured it like 5 hours ago. And so today I saw a report from Institute for the Study of War, and they said they were talking about a particular settlement, and they said the armed forces of Ukraine should be able to recapture it within 48 hours if they have not already. And I found it so funny because they're probably losing their mind trying to prepare these maps, because as we were talking yesterday, you know, these maps are incredibly hard to keep up with because you post a map and it's no longer relevant 5 minutes later. So I'm going to read you the actual statement because I found it I just found it funny. You know, it was very funny that they had said it that way, just to account for the fact that obviously no one knows what the heck is going on because the front line is moving way too fast for anybody to stay current with it. So here it was. Ukrainian forces reached the northern outskirts of Izum on September 10th and will likely recapture the city within the next 48 hours if they have not already. So I found it so incredibly hilarious because they basically gave themselves a cushion so people wouldn't be like, oh, your info is outdated. Like, we have heard that they have done it already. And they were like, listen, we get it. This front line is moving faster than the speed of light. So we're just going to give it the benefit of the doubt that it might have happened already, but we just haven't had the official confirmations yet. Okay, the Ukrainian military has liberated the villages of Vasilenkova and Artemivka in the Kharkiv region, as per Zelensky. And here are the photos of the Ukrainian defenders putting up a Ukrainian flag in those territories. Oh my gosh, thank you, Natlin. That's so pretty. I don't think I've ever seen the disco ball yet. So for those of you on YouTube, I also stream. I stream on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok at the same time. YouTube and TikTok tend to be the biggest platforms in regards of the news. And on TikTok, they have these little gifts that are very cute. And so sometimes I get the little gifts, and I really love them because they're very beautiful. And I really want to say thank you because I'm very grateful for them. So that's what I am reacting to. General Staff, due to heavy losses, the Russians are planning to conduct forced mobilization in the occupied territories. Men are now forbidden to leave occupied settlements. So here is the thing. The Russian authorities have been forcefully mobilizing citizens in occupied territories already. Have been mobilizing men in the occupied territories, and they have been mobilizing them with very tricky ways. Like if men were to come get their kids from kindergarten, they would quite literally be drafted on the spot. They also kidnapped children or kidnapped like teenagers who are men, and then would wait for their like dad or older brother to come pick them up. And they would be like, oh, we can't release them. They're drafted into the military. And the older brother would be like, oh my gosh, they're 14 years old. What do you mean they can't be drafted? And so the Russian authorities would then go like, well, if they can't be drafted, who's going to serve instead of them? Basically forcing you to take their spot, right? So they have also been drafting men from like supermarkets. They have been drafting men from just restaurants. They have been drafting men from cafes. They have been drafting men out of coffee lines. And my personal nightmare that just makes me so incredibly mad is that they have been releasing the ill from hospitals that have the men who are still sick, who still should be in the hospital, who are not better yet. And they have been forcefully sending them to the front lines, which is so screwed up. Not that everything else that Russia does isn't nearly as screwed up. It is, but I think it is such a new low. So now they're saying, due to heavy losses, the Russians are planning to conduct forced mobilization in the occupied territories. Men are now forbidden to leave occupied settlements. Hi, Candy. So there is that. Zelensky says there are 90 days ahead that will decide more than 30 years of Ukraine's independence. 90 days which will decide more than all the years of the European Union's existence. Winter will determine our future. Germany will keep providing military assistance to Ukraine, including arms supplies, according to the German Foreign Affairs Minister, Annalena Baerbock. The armed forces of Ukraine will stop where our interests end, Oleksiy Danilov, Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine. So this statement is actually incredibly important because one of the things that I have been seeing, hi Candy, one of the things that I have been seeing floating around online is all of the jokes that with how fast the Ukrainian offensive is progressing, we will soon be in Moscow. And there's so many, especially foreign journalists, which pisses me off even more, posting things on Twitter like the city of Moscow and the sign for the city of Moscow being painted blue and yellow, joking that the armed forces of Ukraine are going to retake Moscow. That drives me nuts for so many reasons, because we don't want it, period. We don't want it as a joke. We don't want it as reality. We do not want people to post jokes about Belgorod. We do not want people to post jokes about any Russian territory that Ukrainian forces are going to go and recapture. Not as a joke, not as reality, not as just like an afterthought, not as a meme, not as anything. Because this spreads a very dangerous narrative. The narrative is that Ukraine could take Russian land. The narrative is that Ukraine would do that. The narrative is that that's a possibility. The narrative is that Ukraine's army could invade Russia and stuff like that. We couldn't, not because we actually couldn't, but because we wouldn't want to, and because also we do not want anything that isn't ours. Moscow is not ours. Also, the sheer thought of getting any Russian territory that's basically a dirt hole with no infrastructure, with citizens who quite literally think that we are beneath them, with people with the Russian world mentality, we don't need that. We absolutely don't need that. We don't need somebody else's territories. We do not need somebody else's dirty water. We do not need somebody else's dirty territories. Like, I understand it's funny. There are actually Ukrainians saying that they found it funny. It is funny, but that spreads a wrong narrative. That spreads a very wrong narrative. And it's problematic. And so to speak, please, if you are on Twitter, if you are on other social media, please stop retweeting and reposting these things that say like, oh, coming soon, Moscow in blue and yellow. Disgusting. Quite literally disgusting. For me to just look at that and to see that people think that we would want Moscow is disgusting. We do not want Moscow. We do not want any part of Russia that is not ours. We don't want it. We don't want to overtake it. We don't want to invade it. Even if we were the most powerful army in the world, we wouldn't want it. It's their garbage pile, and they will deal with it. In fact, Moscow and St. Petersburg, if Russia were to collapse, probably would be the only two territories that would be left within the territorial Russia without the republics, right? And that is the most populated by ethnic Russians. So no, absolutely not. Not a correct narrative, not a good narrative, does not spread the right message narrative. Damaging narrative. Also with Russians saying that NATO would attack through territory of Ukraine and that's why they invaded. Ukrainians especially spreading this is actually feeding into that Russian propaganda narrative that had we had a chance, we would take those territories just to expand our territory. Had we had a chance, we would say, no, thank you, keep your garbage to yourself. That is how we feel about Russian territories. And also because we're honest people who quite literally are not trying to invade anyone or anything. We just want our people to feel safe on the territory of their home that is Ukraine. So that's that. Also, there was a King Charles III photograph published that was circulating around online, and it's from 1981, and it's Prince Charles dancing hopak, which is a Ukrainian traditional national dance, with the Ukrainian ensemble Hovarla. Hovarla is is the highest mountain in Ukraine. In Derby, 1981. Here is what that looks like. Also, I'm surprised that King Charles is able to do that because actually this is an incredibly difficult dance because it involves one-legged sit-ups throughout the entire thing. And I personally cannot do that. So the fact that he could do that is quite actually impressive. I don't know if something is like holding him. I don't know if he's the only person who's like sitting on a chair behind him or something, or there is some sort of a support behind him, but he's doing like not a bad job with hopak. And hopak quite literally is a dance. So women, it's a different dance for women and for men. Basically, no, this is a real photo from 1981, but I'm surprised that he's able to do that because this entire dance actually for men involves you sitting. So you basically put your leg forward a little bit, you sit up on your other leg, and then you fully put your other leg back, and then you basically interchange them as you're sitting down. And that's the whole, that's a very big, lengthy part of hopak. So I'm quite surprised that that he's able to do that. It's a difficult dance. Like a lot of Ukrainians can't do that. It's actually Cossacks used to do that, and those guys were so incredibly fit, you know. Here is so if you remember, basically Baykar, which is the factory that manufactures Bayraktars, has said that they're going to build a factory that's going to be manufacturing Bayraktars and Bayraktar Type 2s in Ukraine. And here we have a rendering of what this factory is supposed to look like. There we go. He was quite fit then due to playing polo and horse riding. Ooh. Well, his parents lived nearly 100 years, probably superhuman or something. Maybe blue blood isn't unhealthy. Well, I don't know. Don't run away marrying your third cousin. Just because the Queen and Philip lived for a very long time and Charles is, in his 70s and still doing okay, does not mean you should be running around and marrying your third cousin. Just FYI. Just saying, could have worked. It could work out for them. Does not mean it is the best idea. But this factory looks really, really cool. This rendering of the Baykar factory looks really, really good. The loss of the town of Izum was Moscow's worst defeat since its troops retreated from Kyiv, according to Reuters. Liz Truss, in conversation with Emmanuel Macron and the Prime Minister of Poland, Mateusz Morawiecki, agreed to continue supporting Ukraine. They agreed on further joint work to overcome the energy crisis caused by Putin's illegal war, as well as other security and defense issues. Today, today is September 11th, and in Ukraine, September 11th is the day of the Ukrainian tankers, so people who operate tanks. Well, it's the day of Ukrainian tank operators. I don't know why it took me so long. Are you going to delve into other topics when the war is over? I'm going to be talking about reconstruction of Ukraine, and I'm still going to be following. There is going to be so much that's happening in Ukraine after the war is over. I'm still going to be doing the news. I'm still going to be doing reconstruction of Ukraine. I am going to be doing a lot more politics and geopolitics as well, and I am going to switch it into also worldwide, but only for countries that I actually know what I'm talking about. I'm going to be talking about the US a little more. Because I live here, I'm not, rather, I will be talking about the US politics and about Ukraine politics, and I will be talking about worldwide news a little more, but I'm not going to butt into worldwide politics where I don't belong, because it's not, I'm not a citizen nor a resident of any of those countries, and that's just not right. Unless somebody asks for my commentary, I can give them, a little bit of a shorter explanation, or if there is something big happening worldwide, obviously I will touch up on that. Okay, so today is September 11th, and while it is one of the worst days in American history, and every day, no, that's fine. I know you weren't trying to be critical, David. I'm just answering your question, and I am incapable of answering in 2-word sentences, so I was giving you a more elaborate, answer. So today, September 11th, is, while it's one of the darkest days in American history, it is a professional holiday in Ukraine. It is the day of the tank operators from the armed forces of Ukraine. And here is a video dedicated to them and their professional holiday. Take a look. You have local Ukrainian churches, donation there. Yeah, the US also has local Ukrainian churches, and a lot of Ukrainian refugees actually go through these churches in order to get themselves, in order to get sort of like recognized, in order to get support, in order to get put in touch with the right organizations. The New York Times. While preparing a counteroffensive, Ukrainian authorities decided to share information with the United States to gain more support. Before that, US intelligence officials complained that they had much more information about Russian military plans than about Ukrainian ones. The Russians fired rockets at towns in the Donetsk region. An industrial area of the town of Kramatorsk was hit. Private houses were destroyed in Pokrovsk as a result of the strike. 6 people were unalived and 6 more were wounded. Also, due to the shelling in the Donetsk region, there are casualties in Krasnohorivka, 3 people, Bakhmut, 2 people, Raihorodok, 1 person, and 19 wounded in different settlements. Hi, Luann. Photo by Alexander Honcharenko and Ruslan Trabushkin. Here is what that looks like. This is the aftermath of strikes. So when I say I'll be talking about reconstruction of Ukraine, I think that a lot of people do not understand the extent to which Ukraine had been ruined. I don't think a lot of people understand the extent to which Ukraine has been will need reconstruction. There are countries quite literally claiming parts of Ukraine that they want to invest in because it's going to be a reconstruction boom. And there is going to be so much money made on the market with that. So a lot of countries are trying to tap into that market as soon as possible before there is even reconstruction needed, because they're like, oh my God, I want to put dibs because of how much the country has been ruined. Another thing is Zelensky recently spoke at the New York Stock Exchange, introducing to the New York Stock Exchange broker the idea of into reconstruction of Ukraine before the reconstruction is even necessary, in order to sort of incentivize them to, to start pouring money into there. And he was explaining why it's going to be profitable and how much reconstruction is needed. And unfortunately, there is so much reconstruction needed that it is going to be profitable. And there are countries quite literally fighting for which city they want to have dibs on, to have the most role in its reconstruction. And it's horrific, but it's true. And it is going to be, it is going to be an incredibly profitable process for a lot of countries, whether we want it or not as Ukrainians. So this is going to be a video from Ukraine Now, and I'm going to show it to you. You guys know I love Ukraine Now. I think that their videos are so incredibly well done and so incredibly informative. Here we go. As per usual, on the streaming services, we are going to have full screen, and on TikTok, you guys are gonna have it the way that it Let me pull this away. So basically, this actually brings up a very interesting point. In 2024, there is another presidential election in Russia. And obviously, presidential elections in Russia don't mean anything, they're rigged, but there might be a big push to take Putin out of there. But the thing is, even if Putin himself is not going to run anymore, he is going to make sure that he puts somebody into the presidential race who is his proxy, right? Somebody who is convenient for him, like he did with Medvedev a while ago. And then he changed the law to be the president till death, right? But there's supposed to be a presidential election in 2024. Russia was always, so Danon over here is asking on YouTube, I have a question, why is Russia called a federation now? It wasn't always called a federation. It was always called a federation. The official name of Russia is Russian Federation. And the reason why they call it that way is because it's supposed to be a federation union of different republics, like Buryatia, like Kalmykia, or Kalmykia, like Kabardino-Balkarskaya Republic, like Dagestan Republic, like Chechnya Republic, right? It's Russia is comprised of republics. The reason why you never knew that is because Russia is racist and they're trying to basically not let anybody know that they're a multinational country, because they quite literally repress those minorities and they try to make it look like Russia is just one big country that's called Russia and it's just all Russians. And they quite literally repress those minorities, and they're not, if you think about it, Russian people in Russia, the ethnic, like blonde, blue-eyed people that we are so used to seeing as Russians, are a minority. The majority of Russian population are different minorities. There are different republics of different minorities who have their own language, their own religion, their own traditions, their own history, that are not even supposed to be a part of Russia. They're supposed to be autonomous and they're supposed to have their own kind of like rule over themselves, but they don't, because Russia abuses minorities, takes their resources and invests them back into Moscow and St. Petersburg. So that's what it is. The Ukrainian flag has returned to the village of Chkalovsky, Kharkiv region, and this is what it looks like. Take a look. Hi, Ariel. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you so much. I really like that September one. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, you were telling me yesterday about your Finnish descent, Dane, and one of my mods over here is Finnish as well. His name is, well, he's Novus, or now is 2022, but I don't think he's over here today. If you are Novus, let me know. There is someone on YouTube who is Finnish. Ukrainian forces recaptured more territory in 5 days than the Russian troops have seized since April, according to Institute for the Study of War. Ukrainian forces broke through Russian positions 70 kilometers deep in some areas and retook 3,000 square kilometers of territory from September 6th to 10th. The liberation of Izum will be Ukraine's lowest military achievement since the battle for Kyiv in March. Most likely, Institute for the Study of War says it will happen in the next 48 hours if it hasn't happened already. The Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation is lying when it calls its retreat a regrouping. The Institute for the Study of War notes Russian troops are not conducting a controlled withdrawal and are hastily leaving southeast of the Kharkiv region. Is the real Russia very small without other countries? User 2599 asks, yes, it is. It is in fact just about Moscow and St. Petersburg. That's real Russia. Everything else is republics that are populated by people who are not ethnically Russian. Siberia is actually hugely populated by Ukrainians and other nationalities because they have been quite literally sent there to gulags. Привіт, Lviv, героям слава, дуже приємно, я також зі Львова. The morning of September 11th, 2022, in the Luhansk region, partisans set up a Ukrainian flag in the Starobilsk district. So there have been a lot of partisan movements and motions in the occupied regions of Ukraine. And this morning on September 11th, partisans in Luhansk region have set up a Ukrainian flag hoisting over here. And this is where it is territorially on the map. And it's very, very close to Severodonetsk and Lysychansk. And since Severodonetsk and Lysychansk have been reportedly recaptured yesterday, it looks like a lot of people in in these regions are preparing for the return of ZSU. Valery Zaluzhny, commander-in-chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, stated that Ukrainian troops were advancing in the north of the Kharkiv region with 50 kilometers already left to the border with Russia, and that was at 9:42 a.m. The Ukrainian armed forces liberated the villages of Bayrak, Novogusarivka, Shurivka, and Vilhuvatka. The Russian military is fleeing the territory of Luhansk region. They're leaving even the towns that were occupied back in 2014. The Ukrainian flag hung by the partisans is flying in Crimea. Head of the Luhansk Regional Military Administration, Serhiy Haidai. Yeah, so there has been a lot of reports of Russian military and Russian authorities fleeing the places in Luhansk and Donetsk region. Because that have been occupied quite literally since 2014. There is a huge collapse of the front lines, and also, as we have come to know, Russians don't want to fight. They don't want to directly fight. They want to shell. When it comes to directly fighting, they save their ass and they run away. And pardon my French, but that's quite literally what it is. And it's been looking like that's what they have been doing when they found out about armed forces of Ukraine heading towards their directions, because they are scared. They're quite literally scared. Oh my gosh. Also, I want to bring something up because I always don't eat that person yet. Don't eat this one yet. What I want to bring up very, very quickly, which I always bring up because for me, it doesn't affect me, but for someone who's young and impressionable, or just a woman who is insecure, that would affect them. So there, James, I just asked you not to mute them yet, or not to remove that comment. So there was a comment of a person who came in and they were trying to make me feel insecure, and they said plus-sized queen, quite literally trying to say, it's like a backhanded reverse compliment, because they want me to feel insecure about how I appear on camera and how my size appears on camera. Now, I'm not insecure. Andrei, держай, how to... Звідки я вас знаю? Звідки ви знаєте, що я Андріївна? Hi, Carrie. Звідки ви знаєте, що я Андріївна? But so anyways, я таки Андріївна, але звідки ви це знаєте? So basically, one of the things that I want to bring up is that it doesn't affect me. I'm not insecure. I have hypothyroidism. I have thyroid issues. I was a size 12 at 5'2", and it doesn't really bother me because I'm 5'2", so I'm a very short person. I am, in fact, a very small build person, and my size, no matter what it appears, is an extra small to a small. I think the biggest I've ever been, even when I was like 30 pounds or 40 pounds heavier, which I have been, I was quite, right, ім'я мого тата, sorry, but, так, я таки Андріївна. But basically, I think I have been a medium at most, even when I was like 40 pounds over, like genuinely overweight, as in it was not good for my health. I know my self-worth, and it doesn't matter, what someone says. It doesn't matter. Also, plus-sized is not something bad, but they're trying to make it sound bad. They're trying to tell me like, oh, you look big on camera, so we're going to call you a plus-sized queen, and we're going to hope that you're insecure, and it's going to make you feel bad. First of all, it's not only skinny body types that are beautiful. And as long as you love what you look like, it absolutely does not matter what a person says. Also, it is incredibly funny to me that somebody would say that to a woman, specifically targeting insecurities that women might have, right? Trying to find me here and be like, oh, I am going to say that basically what I'm trying to say is you look fat, right? Plus-sized queen. But the thing is, first of all, plus-sized does not mean fat. Second of all, the definition of fat is very subjective. Third of all, as long as you're healthy, as long as you're fine, as long as it, as long as like your weight is not by any means playing a detriment to your health, it literally doesn't matter. Literally doesn't matter. Like this beauty standard of like only super skinny women being beautiful is such horseshit. It is something that people like this, like trolls and people who freaking want to make a ton of money off of magazine industry have imposed on us. You know what? I am not the skinniest person on the planet. I'm small. I'm a small build person. I'm 5'2". I'm tiny, right? But at the same time, I'm not super skinny. I am not super fit. And you know what? Damn straight, I think I look good because, not because I'm like, oh, everybody finds me attractive. I'm not doing this for you. I find me attractive. I wake up every morning. I dress up to the point to which I think it suits me and I like how I look. I do my makeup for how I find it to look good. I find it to look good and I do it for me. And so should you. And that's all I want to say, because there is going to be a person who's going to look at that, or there is going to be a person who's built like me, who is insecure, or who thinks that, or who thinks that like a certain body build is not attractive or something like that. There's going to be a person who's built like me, who's going to read that comment and who's going to be like, oh my gosh, I look like this girl. This guy just said that this girl looks like she's plus sized. And does that mean that I'm plus sized? Does that mean that I look bad? Does that mean that I look this? Does that mean that I look that? And they're going to go and starve themselves. And I don't want that to happen. First of all, even if I was plus sized, even if I was sitting here and I was plus sized, that is fine. That is a beautiful body type. Any body type is a beautiful body type. Again, as long as you are healthy, as long as you are happy, as long as you like your outfits, as long as you like what you look like, you go girl. And don't let any troll, any man, or any idiot try to use plus sized as something to make you feel insecure about yourself. Plus sized, you go. Anyways, and men too. Yes, you're right. And men too. Plus sized, you go boy. Plus sized, you go girl. Skinny sized, you go girl. Here is the thing. People like to refer to plus sizes and to someone who's overweight as something horrible. Because, oh, if you look skinny, that's totally better, But the funny thing, but not the funny, but the sad thing is that, there are a lot of skinny people who are also struggling with health issues. So many more, but we don't perceive it as that. Because we're trained to think that skinny is good, overweight is bad and is unhealthy. But there are as many skinny people who are unhealthy, who have health issues, who have bulimia, who have anorexia. And that is even freaking more unhealthy and even more and results in even more issues. So no, I'm not going to ignore comments like that, not because they bother me, but because I think it's incredibly important to raise these subjects because it's so freaking unfair. Done here. Let's go back to Ukraine, to news about Ukraine. The Ukrainian flag is also flying in Kondrashivka. However, full control of the village has not yet been officially reported. But this is what it looks like, and we can look at it and we can stare at it in awe. September 11th, 2001, a day of horror that has changed the whole world. On this day, the largest terrorist attack in world history occurred in the USA. Terrorists hijacked several planes with passengers on board and directed them toward the Twin Towers in New York and the Pentagon. And this was a tribute to September 11th in the Ukrainian news publication. Crimea is Ukraine. Activists of the Yellow Ribbon Resistance Movement in Simferopol, inspired by the counterattack of the armed forces of Ukraine, continue to spread pro-Ukrainian graffiti and the yellow ribbon as a symbol. Take a look. Thank you, Carrie. This says ZSU, which means Ukrainian Armed Forces. Oh, you wore your Ukrainian t-shirt all week. That's awesome. Thank you, Intellipi Runner. Hi. And thank you, Carrie. Героям слава, Богдан. Oh, there is more, actually. This says Crimea is ours. This one says we are near. And this one has the symbol here as well. And also, I'm going to comment very fast on something that has been said on YouTube, and it says I lost 100 pounds. Weight doesn't matter, and then I'm overweight, but I'm overweight due to my injuries from a lifetime of getting broken up with my job. So here's the thing: it doesn't matter, right? It matters how you feel. Like per se, for me, I feel like if I go above a certain weight, I can feel it in a way in which it kind of makes my life a little more difficult to live. Like it'll be harder for me to go up the stairs. It'll be harder for me to run. Like my thighs start rubbing together. I can't wear dresses unless I wear something underneath them, right? And if I lose like 5 pounds over, like underneath that, then my life gets much, much easier because it's just easier for me to like kind of move around and have more mobility. Because I'm a small person, for me, every pound, literally, I feel it, right? But that weight is still not something that appears to people like, oh my gosh, like some people could say, oh, you have extra weight, right? Yeah, I do. And I love it that way. The only reason that I don't want to go anywhere below it is because at that point in weight, I feel healthy. I feel good. I feel like I can do everything that I need to do without it feeling like a burden. And that is what matters. It only matters how you feel. And it doesn't matter what society tells you should be weighed in at. It's about your feeling. There are so many people that will be considered overweight, and they are very healthy. They are athletes. They probably can do more with how athletic they are than your average person who is actually saying it to them, who is not overweight by the standard means. So stop it. Dnipro as a result of missile attack last night. This is what it looks like. So no, these pictures and these videos were from activists of the Yellow Ribbon Resistance Movement in Simferopol, Crimea. Inspired by the counterattack of the armed forces of Ukraine, continue to spread pro-Ukrainian graffiti and the yellow ribbon as a symbol around Simferopol, which is an occupied territory in Crimea. The head of the Chechen Republic, Ramzan Kadyrov, criticized the strategy of the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation and stated that he would contact the leadership of the country to explain the situation to them if there are no changes in the war. Oh, that's funny. So Kadyrov now wants to talk to Putin about how terribly the defensive is going. The president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, called the Ukrainians' fight against Russian aggression courageous, assuring that the EU will help rebuild Ukraine on its way to the European Union. Since the beginning of the war, Portugal has not approved a single request from Russian citizens for a golden visa, a resident permit in exchange for investment. That is amazing news. Actually, Portugal has been incredibly supportive of Ukraine. And Portugal has been like taking in Ukrainian refugees, and Portugal has been creating jobs in the restaurant and entertainment industry for Ukrainians. It has been very, very, very like generous on their behalf. The Kremlin has suspended the so-called referendums on joining the occupied territories of Ukraine to the Russian Federation. Medusa reports, citing sources. It is alleged that the pseudo-referendums were postponed indefinitely in connection with the successful counteroffensive of the Ukrainian military. You don't say. I wonder why they postponed them. This is how Ukrainian soldiers are met in the liberated territories of the Kharkiv region.
Там, де ми стоїмо до кінця, і нас не зламає війна, наша віра єднає серця.
David, I don't know.
Україна навіки жива. Україна – це наша земля. Україна єднає серця.
The name of the song is Ukraine Connects Hearts. But so Dade is asking on YouTube, will Crimea be in Ukraine after this? That's the plan. We are planning on liberating all the territories that Russia has captured, and Crimea has been illegally captured by Russia and illegally occupied by Russia since 2014. And yes, we are fully planning on recapturing all of our territories where Ukrainian people live and where Ukrainian people want to be Ukrainian, to the borders defined in 1991 as internationally recognized borders of Ukraine, and those include all of the Donbas region and Crimea. So yes. Foreign Minister of Montenegro, Ranko Krivokapic, advocated the introduction of visas for Russians, writes Dan. In particular, this was stated by the Foreign Ministry against the backdrop of the suspension of the European Union of an agreement of the simplified issuance of visas to citizens of the Russian Federation. Montenegro is a faithful partner of the European Union, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs believes that our country should be in full solidarity with the EU in this decision, as it has been so far, the Foreign Ministry said. So now Montenegro is going to try and introduce a visa restriction on Russians as well. Here are Ukrainian armed forces on the roof of a building in Izum, saying Slava Ukraini. So a little bit, it's a little bit, a little bit wasteful of rounds of ammunition. I will condemn that for a second, but they pretty much liberated. We'll get to that in a second. For some reason, Russians advise collaborators to flee to Russia. On their information resources in Enerhodar, the occupiers posted an announcement in which, due to the aggravation of the situation, they recommend residents of the occupied territories of Ukraine to leave for the Russian Federation. Also, there is a huge line of Russian collaborators at the border, and they're not being let into Russia because Russia can't possibly explain such a huge amount of refugees. Why? If everything is going okay at the front, why are all of these people fleeing into Russia? So they didn't think about it when they told citizens to go back. So now they're not letting them in. Australian Bushmaster armored personnel carriers in the Kharkiv direction. This is what it looks like. Чи ти не вважаєш, що всі санкції проти Раші в основному вдарять по простих громадянах? Вони вдаряють і по тому, і мені не шкода простих громадян, тому що прості громадяни дивляться на те, як українці вмирають з 2014 року і нічого проти цього не роблять. А зараз особливо нічого не роблять, кажуть, що не хочуть свого президента, але при тому бояться піти в тюрму за те, що вони будуть протестувати. Наші люди, коли не хотіли Януковича, реально вийшли на Майдан і пожертвували своїм життям. А росіянам легше дивитись на те, як українці помирають, ніж щось зробити, щоб забрати Путіна. Мені все рівно, на кого ці санкції будуть діяти, вони все рівно дієві. І якщо вони діють на простих громадян, то, можливо, ті громадяни встануть з дивану і підуть щось зроблять. Wait, so not letting retreat Rus soldier. Yes, they're not letting, wait, so not letting retreating Rus soldiers in. Yes. Let me respond in Ukrainian really quick to somebody. Не треба за всіх казати дуже категорично. Я не категорична. Справа в тому, що у Росії менше ніж 1% людей в загальному протестували. You know what? Actually, I'm going to respond in English. I am being called incredibly categorical and incredibly like one-sided, because basically I'm saying that I don't care what happens to all Russians. And here is what I'm going to respond to that. First of all, the first question was whether I think that sanctions are mostly going to affect regular citizens and not going to affect most of Russian, like, higher postulated people. They're going to affect both. But even if they're going to affect regular citizens, I don't necessarily care for that, and I don't feel bad for them, because those regular citizens are quite literally the citizens that are doing nothing to stop the war, that are doing nothing to push out Putin. And what they're saying is, oh my gosh, we don't like Putin, yet they're not willing to do anything because they're scared of being jailed. When Ukrainians did not like Yanukovych, we came out on Maidan and quite literally laid our life to not let a dictator take over us. So those Russian people literally don't want to do anything. They don't want to put themselves in danger in order to overthrow a dictator. They want somebody to come in and overthrow a dictator for them. And they don't want to pay the price for freedom. And freedom isn't free. You have to fight for it. Now, I'm being called categorical in what I'm saying because it's not all Russians. Here's the thing. It is all Russians. The resistance in Russia was less than 1%. 16,000 people were detained. That doesn't mean jailed. That means detained since the beginning of the invasion. 16,000 people were detained since the beginning of the invasion. Not jailed, detained for protesting against the war in Ukraine. That is out of 145 million people. So even if there is 3 times, 4 times as many people who are against the invasion of Ukraine, that is still not even 1% of the population. So if you want to be a Russian apologist and you are Ukrainian, I don't know how to help you, because honestly, that is disgraceful to start feeling bad for regular Russians who generationally have been abusing us. So no, don't give me that rhetoric. Not all Russians, gosh. Those not all Russians who are against the war in Ukraine today, who are abroad, who are fleeing their country instead of doing something, there have been quite literally 6 million Russians that have left Russia since the beginning of invasion. You know what 6 million people could have done? Stormed the Kremlin. They could have changed something for the better. They could have changed the future of their country. Instead, they ran away and they fled. So no, I'm sorry, but the whole poor Russians rhetoric is not going to fly with me. Not poor Russians. All of the Russians that are against the war in Ukraine are the same Russians who told me "Привет, хохлушка," who called me хохлушка as a joke. And then when I said, don't call me that, said, oh my gosh, you're so stuck up. Just like, get over it. It's just a joke. Chochol is the equivalent of the N-word when used by a Russian towards a Ukrainian. That's what they call us. Chochli. And I've been called chochlushka by every single Russian that I have ever met. And all of those Russians are against the war. But if I tell them that I don't like being called chochlushka, stop doing it, they're going to tell me that I'm uptight and that I need to get over it myself. So no. The armed forces of Ukraine have reached the state border with the Russian Federation in the north of the Kharkiv region. Russians have been pushed out to the border.
Ми зачиняємо кордон. От, і все. Партія зачинила. І знак стоп поставимо зараз. Поставимо в ту сторону, розверни стоп, хай вони бачать, що стоп. От, отак. Вон, повісь на оцю. Вон.
Oh my God, Iron Curtain, honestly, I don't understand what your deal with me is. I don't follow you. I don't comment on any of your stuff. I'm very sorry to hear for the loss of your father, but this comment is so beneath the lowest low. The fact that I think that you people are cowards and that you are fleeing your country instead of doing something has nothing to do with the fact that I feel bad for you losing your father. And you saying that is so incredibly low and such a disgusting thing to use to invoke pity on yourself and to make me sound like a villain. I can't even begin to state that. I really liked you when I first found your profile, but I cannot fathom how many times someone tells you Russia is bad and you comment back saying, but Ukraine though. You deflect so many times and your arguments and your comments are so disgusting that I quite literally unfollowed you for that. Not even because you're Russian, but because I got tired of listening to your backhanded bullshit about Ukraine, to your excusionism and to your defensiveness about Russia. Any single time somebody calls out Russia on something bad, you're up there pointing the finger at them. The amount of Ukrainian creators that you have been trying to bring down because they talk against Russia is also insane. And then you sit there and you're like, oh, I'm pro-Ukrainian. Yet you will not skip an opportunity to go and shit on a Ukrainian creator. I'm sorry for your loss. I genuinely am. Nobody deserves to lose their parents. I don't think that a good Russian is a dead Russian. I don't think about Russians. And I don't care what happens to you in your country. I don't care what you do because it's up to you and up to your country. I have not a single time told you or any Russian that a good Russian is a dead Russian. Not a single time. So for you to come here and say something like that, specifically to make me look bad and to make you look like a poor little girl who's been offended, is disgraceful. Genuinely. And all I have to say to you is I am very upfront and honest about it. I do consider Russians cowards. You as well. I will give you that. I think you are a coward. And I think that every single person in Russia who's against the war, yet flees Russia, is a coward. There are 6 million of you who fled. 6 million could have stormed the Kremlin. 6 million have friends with similar beliefs. So that could be 12 million. You could have done something, but instead of that, instead of guaranteeing your future, you whine on the internet about how bad things are getting and how you can't do anything about it while you're not willing to. That's what I will give you. Other than that, I quite literally do not care for the hell of me what happens to you, what happens to Russia, what happens to you in Russia, what happens to Putin, whether you overthrow him, whether you don't overthrow him. That does nothing to me. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to know about it. It's about you. And it's about you whining about your situation and not doing anything about it. For me, it doesn't matter. I don't want to hear about any of it. I can give Russia as a context to something that's happening in Ukraine. I can give Russia as a context of criticizing something, whining, and not doing anything about it. Other than that, I quite frankly do not care what happens with you, as long as you don't talk about how poor you are and how you're struggling in the context of Ukraine, where people are quite literally dying at your hands and where you're going to the military to go kill Ukrainians instead of going to jail because, oh no, you will go to jail. Then yeah, I'll bring it up. And I'll say that I think Russians are hypocrites and Russians are cowards. Other than that, not my freaking problem. Now, please, I beg you, stop coming to my streams. I don't go on your profile. I don't comment on your stuff. And I would appreciate the same courtesy. Thank you very much. Dude, I don't feed the narrative. I don't feed the narrative. I express my opinion anytime anyone says that poor Russians, because not poor Russians, cowardly Russians. Adios. Oh my gosh. Dude. I'm tired of you. I'm tired of you. The invaders cannot accept the successes of the armed forces of Ukraine. Therefore, they began to terrorize the civilian population. On the evening of September 11th, shelling damaged infrastructure facilities, resulting in power outages in a number of regions. Attacks on critical infrastructure that have nothing to do with the army are direct, undisguised act of genocide. Violation of the rules and customs of war occurs on the air without any justification. Despite the war, Ukrainian children are going back to school, and now they're learning not just language or math, but how to behave in a shelter and what an air raid siren means, and remember it all by doing fun exercises. Russia may not survive a catastrophic invasion of Ukraine. The failed war has only exacerbated some of the chronic problems that plague of the neo-imperialist structure of the Russian Federation, writes Janusz Bugajski, a senior fellow at the Jamestown Foundation think tank, in an op-ed for the Atlantic Council. Podolyak confirmed that the Russian army hit CHPP-5, the thermal power plant, in one of the largest in Ukraine. Russians have hit a thermal power plant in Ukraine. In Kharkiv region. Oh, she's not a troll. She's a Russian creator. I'm just so tired of her. I'm so incredibly tired of her. Podolyak confirmed that the Russian army hit CHPP-5. This thermal power plant is one of the largest in Ukraine. So that is in Kharkiv region. Consequences of a power outage due to shelling by the occupiers of the thermal power plant of Ukraine. In Poltava, 3 trolleybuses caught fire right on the road due to power surges. In Kharkiv, due to a power outage, the subway stopped. In addition, a large number of cities and towns are still without electricity. The liquidation of the consequences of shelling continues. The supply of energy will soon be restored. This is what it looks like. Rare Ukrainian minesweeper BMR-64, created on the basis of the T-64A tank with dismantled weapons and installed dynamic protection. Contact 1, Kharkiv region. So apparently East Kharkiv has electricity has been restored. German Foreign Minister Baerbock calls on Russia to return control of Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant to Ukraine. US will continue efforts to limit Russia's attempts at circumventing sanctions, тому що в мене вся аудиторія в Америці так само, як я. 90 days ahead will be more crucial for Ukraine than past 30 years of independence, said Zelensky. Germany prepared to face coming winter without Russian gas, said Scholz. Так, я розмовляю українською, звичайно, я народилася і виросла у Львові. Someone on Twitch, could you please remove a piece of garbage that had somehow swept into the stream? Kharkiv counteroffensive shows Ukraine can defeat Russia, but more weapons are needed, said Kuleba. Water and electricity were restored to Enerhodar, Zaporizhzhia Oblast. Russian strike on Dnipro leaves multiple wounded. Russian forces shell Mykolaiv, injuring 9. Russian shelling injures 4 people in Dnipro. Ukrainian forces down a Russian bomber. Russian forces kill 10 civilians, injure 19 in Donetsk Oblast on September 10. Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant's last reactor was shut down. Hi, Smiley. Russia's war has unalived at least 383 children, injured over 747 since February 24th. Russian attacks unalive 1 person, injure 9 in Kharkiv Oblast on September 11th. Putin lies about grain exports, according to UK intelligence. The UK Defense Ministry said Russian President Vladimir Putin's claim that only 60,000 tons of grain exported from Ukraine since August has been sent to developing nations, and most has been sent to the EU, is not true. Hi, Dan. UN figures indicate that around 30% of exports have been supplied to low and middle income countries in Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. Ukrainian forces are also continuing to make significant gains in Kharkiv Oblast, although fighting is ongoing near Kupiansk and Izum. That is as of 4:07 a.m. Ukraine's Air Force destroyed 3 Russian drones cruise missiles on September 10th. Ukrainian forces liberate Cheklovske, Kharkiv Oblast. Привіт, Одеса. Я з Нью-Йорку. Ukrainian forces recapture more territory in 5 days than Russia since April. Partners who answer calls for weapons share in Ukraine's successes on the battlefield, said Kuleba. According to New York Times, Ukraine's capture of Izum may represent a turning point in Donbas. Russian attack on Voznesensk, Mykolaiv Oblast injures 2. Oh, you missed most of it. Russian troops kill 10, injure 19 people in attacks on Donetsk Oblast. Ukraine plans to become full-fledged part of EU in 2 years, according to the Ms. Shmyhal. France to sign a deal with Romania to increase grain export from Ukraine. Russia admits its troops were pushed back from almost entire Kharkiv Oblast. That was at 9:21 a.m. Eastern Standard. The Russian Defense Ministry published a video showing that Ukraine's armed forces knocked out the Russian forces from the north of Kharkiv Oblast. The Institute for the Study of War earlier said that the Ukrainian forces have penetrated Russian lines to a depth of up to 70 kilometers and taken over 3,000 square kilometers since September 6th, liberating more territory than Russia captured since April. Armed forces are within 50 kilometers of Russian border as Ukraine makes further gains in Kharkiv Oblast, and that was at 9:55 a.m. Since then, Ukraine has reached the Kharkiv border. Armed forces liberate over 40 settlements in Kharkiv Oblast. General Staff of Ukraine, Russian troops retreat from Svatova, Luhansk Oblast. Lviv airport may become the first to resume work if its safe operation is guaranteed. Ukrainian Infrastructure Minister Alexander Kubrakov said during the annual Yalta European Strategy Conference in Kyiv that technically it would take up to 2 weeks to resume the work of Ukrainian airports. But this will be possible only if the safety of their work is guaranteed by international partners and the UN, Kubrakov said. Ukrainian airports stopped operating after Russia launched its full-scale invasion on February 24th. Train delays reported due to power outages caused by Russian strikes on the territory of Ukraine. Also, hi Core83. 1 second, your message is really long. I will get to it, but I just want to finish this first, and then I will interact with your message and give my commentary. 1 minute. Zelensky reacts to massive blackouts, calls Russians terrorists. President Volodymyr Zelensky said that terrorists remain terrorists when commenting on Russian strikes of infrastructure that led to major blackouts. Zelensky said that there had been complete blackouts in Kharkiv and Donetsk Oblast and partial blackouts in Zaporizhzhia, Dnipropetrovsk, and Sumy Oblast. History will put everything in its place, he said, addressing the Russians. We will be with gas, light, water, and food, and without you. Macron discusses Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant with Putin, asks him to withdraw weapons. In a September 11th phone call, French President Emmanuel Macron told Russian dictator Vladimir Putin that Russia's occupation of the ZNPP in Russian-occupied Enerhodar posed a threat to the plant's integrity. He asked Putin to withdraw both heavy and light weapons from the plant and ensure the site's safety by following the International Atomic Energy Agency's recommendations. Former Kharkiv security chief arrested on treason charges. Zelensky, the world is amazed by our warriors. The enemy is in a panic. In a video address, President Volodymyr Zelensky said that he is confident that the Ukrainian military will liberate all Russian-occupied territories and reach Ukraine's borders. They will call the Russian retreat a gesture of goodwill, Zelensky said. We will call it victory. And that is all news that I have for today. I would also like to ask you guys for a favor. If you're watching this stream and you like it, but you're not a follower, please follow, because that will make it much easier for me to deliver more news to people, as the algorithm will keep pushing my stream further, and that way more people will be able to find out about what's happening in Ukraine. If you're watching this, please don't forget to how they say it these days, smash the like button. So please don't forget to smash the like button. If you are on Twitch and YouTube, please do the same. I don't know if there is a like button on Twitch. I don't think there is. If you're on Twitter and watching this, also please follow me, because I've noticed there are a lot of people watching on Twitter and then they just disappear. And I do put a lot of news out on Twitter. It's probably one of my most active social media platforms right now, because I do a lot of reposts. I post a lot of my commentary. Hi, Evie. Hi. And I wanted to say, there was a comment right here from Core, and it says, I always have to think of this quote from Sophie Scholl. She was a member of the White Rose Nazi resistance. Rend the cloak of indifference that you have wrapped around your heart. I cannot understand that people are now constantly being put in danger of life by other people. I can never understand it, and I find it horrible. Don't say it's for the fatherland. Thank you, Truthful. I think this quote fits quite well in relation to some Russian patriots. I think that's very true, because they just put on a cloak, and I've seen so many people, so many entries with people saying that, well, war is bad, but it doesn't directly do anything to them, so they don't care. So they don't care about what's happening in Ukraine because their life has not changed, and it does not directly affect them by any means. So, do you have a video of those symbols from Crimea? No, but I will post one. If you want me to, I will post a video about the symbols from Crimea. Thank you, Melissa. Also, thank you, Melissa. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Let's do a 10-minute question briefing, as we usually do, and I will answer every questions you guys might have, suggestions you guys might have. Let me know. I'm happy to see Ukraine winning. Me too, Dan. Me too. Oh yeah, it has, and I've showered like so many times. My perfume tattoo. So I use this like perfume thing. It's basically like a temporary tattoo. You can draw whatever you want, and it has like a smell. It has a scent to it. Obviously, it's not gonna have a scent. Obviously, it's not gonna have a scent after like you've showered a bunch of times, but it still stays. Well, this is kind of gross now, and I do really want to take it off, but I need to really scrub it. But it stays for a long time, and it's really cute. And it kind of looks like a very fresh actual tattoo, you know, when you first look at it. So yeah, Tammy, it's been here for a while. I agree with you. So yes, if you're still, if you're new to YouTube, you're new to TikTok, you're new to Twitch, I do post a lot of information behind the scenes on Twitter when I'm not live. I'm live with news about Ukraine every day. Tonight, I'm going to do a special newscast about 9/11, where we can discuss a little more about that, because obviously I would want to pay, as a New Yorker, a tribute that is much longer than just a saying in the beginning of the stream. I would say it'd be somewhere around like 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or 10:30-ish. I will make an announcement. I will make a stream before the stream happens, and you will guys see it on YouTube at least an hour before it's gonna come up. So just check YouTube and you will find out. And I will do that later. And you will get that later, and we will do that later tonight. I tell people in Iowa, this doesn't affect us all. This will be in the history book, important to learn. Also, the thing is that you will be able to, the thing is that it does affect, the only reason it doesn't affect you is because Ukraine is fighting. Because if Ukraine were to give up, or if Ukraine were to be defeated, then it would affect the United States, because NATO would have to intervene, because Russia would attack a NATO member country. So yeah, but thank you so much for telling it like it is in Iowa. I really, really incredibly appreciate it. All right, guys, since there aren't that many questions really coming in, I will say, oh, it does affect us. Gotcha. No, I mean, like, I still appreciate, even if they said it doesn't affect us, but it'll be in history books. I still appreciated it, because they're saying it like it is. So I'm not trying to, making them sound bad or anything. I just, I really do appreciate it. Okay, guys, it looks like there aren't any more questions, and I am going to go. It was incredibly good to see you. And also, oh my gosh, Rosie, it's you. Hi. Hi, Rosie. So it was really good to see you. Carlos, hi. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Oh, Jen, your profile picture. Thank you, Christina. So excited to have you over on Patreon. And yes, please, if you have an opportunity to check out my Twitter, I do post a lot there. And if you'd like to support my work, I do have a Patreon, and my Patreon is linked in my YouTube description and my bio on TikTok. You will find it. And if you can't find the link to it, then my Patreon is Spy News Network INTL. So Spy News Network International. Yeah, go ahead, Jillian. Sorry, there is a question that Jillian had. So we do have another, we're gonna be around for another 2 minutes or however long it takes to answer the question, and then I'm gonna go. But yes, in the meanwhile, while Jillian is trying to ask the question, I will just say, if you are able to support, if you are able and want to support me, please check out my Patreon. On Patreon, you guys get information before everybody else does. And if you have heard about the interview that I'm going to be doing tomorrow or the day after, on Patreon, you can see exactly who I'm going to be doing that interview with, and you will be able to vote for the next interviewee and stuff like that. Oh, and also there is a whole lot of Cine, so much Cine. It's basically Patreon, not Patreon. Thank you, Evie, and thank you, Cransome. I love that. Oh, are there many Ukrainian citizens living in Crimea? Are they in danger? If so, there are a lot of Crimean Tatars living in Crimea who would prefer to be Ukrainian citizens, and they are the natives of Crimea. And also, there are a lot of Ukrainians that stayed in Crimea and wanted to stay living in Crimea, but they were all forced to get Russian passports. But it also depends, because there are a lot of people who kept speaking Ukrainian, who kept doing things for Ukraine, who stayed in Crimea, and those people, I think, are incredibly important. And then there are people who gladly went and got a Russian citizenship. And also thank you for finding me, Bami, and hi, Elliot. So yes, there are a lot of Ukrainians living in Crimea. They're not necessarily Ukrainian citizens anymore because they were forced a Russian passport upon them. How about interview Ukraine female soldier? Yeah, I can try to. See, if you were on Patreon, you could make that a suggestion, but I'm joking. You don't have to. I don't want to force anybody to do anything. I do really, 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 how do I have Slava Fatal Adjuster? I do really appreciate when people sign up for my Patreon because every $10 does go a very long way for me. But I absolutely no pressure. Ivan Buntik, what about that interview with Azov soldier? I'm supposed to record the interview tomorrow or on Tuesday. We are figuring out the date today, and then that interview should be up after OPSEC, after I edit it, and after basically like operational security and the command and their higher command approves it. So should be about a week until the interview, until you will be able to see the interview. Alrighty, guys, I'm gonna go. Have a good day. Have a good rest of your day. I will see you way later today, and we will talk a little bit about stories about 9/11 and survivor stories and stories of those who did not make it to work that day for some reason. And we will talk a lot about that, and we will pay tribute to 9/11 if you're interested. And thank you very much. Goodbye. Please follow me on Twitter. If you are new to the stream, you like the stream, please follow me. If you're on TikTok, please follow my TikTok. That will help me spread the news further, because the more following you have, the further the news go, because the algorithm likes you more. And the algorithm sees that you guys are engaging with my stream, and the algorithm sees that you guys are engaging with me. And same goes for YouTube, and same goes for Twitch. And then Twitter is if you want to see more news when I am not live. Alrighty, guys, have a good day. Have a good night. For those of you who are on the other side of the world across the Atlantic, and I will see you tomorrow or later tonight. Bye-bye.